Welcome to the Work Trends podcast from Talent Culture. I'm your host, Megan Mbiro. Every week, I interview interesting people who are reimagining work. And be sure to check out our Work Trends Twitter chat events calendar located at talentculture.com on the podcast page. Welcome to the Talent Culture Work Trends podcast, sponsored today by Peppy Health. I'm your host, Megan Mbiro, and in this episode, we're shedding light on a topic that is often brushed under the carpet, the impact of menopause on your workforce. We are thrilled to introduce our esteemed guest, Barb Dean, the VP of Menopause and Women's Health Services at Peppy Health. We are going to be exploring together how menopause affects the workforce and ways businesses can better support their employees going through this stage in life. But first, I want to introduce you to the one, the only Barb herself. Barb is a practicing women's health nurse practitioner, award-winning author, and a nationally recognized health expert. She is certified by the North American Menopause Society and is a fellow in the American Association of Nurse Practitioners. So I am thrilled you're here today, Barb. What a small world we live in, right?
Oh, Megan, is small and getting smaller. And it's a pleasure to be on one of my favorite podcasts. I love your interviews.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. And I'm super honored you're here. So right back at you. So listen, let's get on with it. So I'm going to dive right in. Why is there a stigma about menopausal women? And what can employers offer to help overcome these myths? And I got another one. Is menopause a byproduct of ageism? I mean, I got to put it out there.
I'm so glad you're asking all these questions. This is so helpful because I think a lot of women have been really stigmatized for a couple reasons, right? We don't want to let our biology telegraph that we're getting older. So if you're having a hot flash or a night sweat, or maybe you've noticed a little chin hair, that telegraphs to other people that I'm not as young as I used to be, but also I'm not in control of my biology. So absolutely, there's a stigma. I mean, Megan, remember kind of maybe in our mom's day, women were told never let them see you sweat?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Because women were supposed to do everything, do it well, and never, ever have any challenges outside of work. But the issue is that we have biology. Things happen. And when it comes to menopause, there's two things at play here. One is menopause absolutely impacts sleep, and that impacts mood, and that impacts memory. So 67% of menopausal women have some brain fog. Super hard to be your most productive self and bring your best self to work if you have brain fog, if you can't find that word on the tip of your tongue, or you suddenly go blank in a presentation. Women feel bad about that because they want to be super productive. They want to be part of the team. But if you aren't sleeping well, and sometimes that can last for 3 to 7 years, that can be very, very difficult.
Well, and I just want to say, if you're out there in the Work Trends audience, there's something super toxic. Let me just put it out there about saying never let people see you sweat. Because you know what? Sweating's actually good for us. Let's just level set there. That's how we're removing toxins and all these things from our bodies. So there you have it, right, Barb?
Has challenges. We don't get to choose what those are, but we do get to choose how we deal with them. And what I've been really excited about is menopause is having a moment. And when we have Oprah Winfrey and Stacey London and Michelle Obama talking about menopause openly, it gives everyone else permission to say, oh yeah, I'm also having that. And that's also impacting my life at home and at work. So I love that we're shining a spotlight on this today.
And I have to say, with the advent of the pandemic, health and wellness have emerged as a big topic in the workplace. What type of health and wellness programs can companies offer to women that include the topic of menopause?
Oh my gosh, this is such a good question because there's so much that companies can offer. Now, here's the thing. We all know the healthcare system, we have health insurance through our employers, but oftentimes when it comes to getting an appointment with a specialist, let's say for polycystic ovary syndrome or pain with periods or endometriosis or menopause, it can take months to see a specialist. And when we do see them, they may only have a few minutes. And sometimes they don't have the education or training. So when people do go to see their specialist, they may be dismissed or their symptoms may be minimized. So employers are really stepping up and they're saying, wait, we want to make sure our employees have the services and the resources they need. So we're seeing a lot of employers provide not only menopause related services, but women's health related services, men's health, and LGBTQ services, because we know that people need to have access to providers in a few minutes, not a few months.
Oh, gosh, that's like music to my ears. And I know, I hear from our listeners all the time about how much the pandemic has changed just what you're talking about, even timing for things. I mean, everything just drags on. So this is something I bet many people don't realize. Let's talk about menopause and the retirement wealth gap. I thought this was interesting. Let's talk about the connection between the two.
Oh, sure. So I practice in Silicon Valley and I have patients who have every sort of job title. They're people in customer service all the way up to the C-suite. And what we find is, and this is borne out by a lot of research, that when it comes to menopause and midlife, you see that 1 in 4 women consider leaving their job because of their symptoms. Megan, how many do you think actually do leave their job?
It's going to be lower, no?
Yeah, it's 1 in 10, but that's still 10%. So when 10% of midlife women are leaving just at the apex of their career, that absolutely impacts the wealth gap. That impacts the numbers of women who are in senior leadership positions, and that absolutely impacts and widens that gender pay gap, the retirement pay gap, and the wealth pay gap. I mean, all of those things are those downstream impacts when menopausal women are considering leaving their jobs.
Barb, I was actually geeking out on one of your ebooks on this topic. The data shows that 25% of women going through menopause have considered leaving the workforce, right? We're going to dive a little bit deeper here. How are we improving retention for these women? I mean, what are we doing? And what is the real reason why they feel compelled to leave?
So let's start with why they feel compelled to leave. And there's another surprising aspect here. Not only do they feel like they can't function because they're juggling a lot of other stressors from caring for elderly parents and maybe teenagers at home, but if you're not sleeping, if you're having disruptive symptoms, and really perimenopause is that time before periods stop completely, perimenopause with irregular cycles, hot flashes, night sweats, up all night, that can go on for 3 to 7 years. Now, Megan, if you ever had a new baby or a new puppy, or you're caring for someone who's sick and you're up all night for 3 to 7 days, you can't function, right?
No, nobody can. I don't care who you are. And if you're out there and you're one of those, I get 4 hours of sleep a night and I feel great. I don't buy it on top
It's
of it.
hard.
I mean, it's hard.
Yeah, you feel like you're doing a good job, but you're not. So people, and I know we're talking about women, but not everyone who has these symptoms identifies as a woman. But when they're having these symptoms, they're like, I can't possibly be effective in my role. And what I hear from my patients also, when the door is closed and when it's safe to be honest, they're also not taking the promotions because they don't feel like they can do their job effectively and manage all of these symptoms. I want to tell you one other thing. There was a study from McKinsey and Company and the leanin.org. For every woman at the director level who gets promoted, for every woman who gets promoted, guess what? 2 female directors are choosing to leave their companies. All right, so what can companies do? You know what happens if you start talking about this, if you put this in your internal communications and you put it into those emails and you start to open up the dialogue, people start to respond. There's also other ways that we can talk about in a minute for how companies can make it safe for women and people to talk about these symptoms. And one easy way is an anonymous survey, because people should not have to be forced to talk about something as deeply personal and private as some of these symptoms that they may be experiencing.
Now, HR tends to be the catch-all in many companies, but like any other department, they too need education and information. I mean, what steps can HR take to understand how women's health is a valid workplace topic?
This is great because just being here on this, listening to this podcast is step number one. So being open, being curious to learn about it. But number two is you don't have to be an expert. So you don't have to go back to residency and learn everything there is to know about women's health to be open and to have an open door policy. People may want to, again, use an anonymous survey to find out what their people are experiencing and meet their people where they are, not assume that they have certain concerns or they want certain things. And then the open door policy without judgment and creating policies where no one feels like they'll be made fun of if they're having a hot flash or a night or they're coming to work a little bit late. Companies are also finding, Megan, that because so many women are leaving, when they offer like a mini leave of absence, a short time away, it actually helps retain that top talent. And then when they come back, right, they're ready, they're refreshed, they've dealt with some of these issues. It saves so much money in the hiring and training of someone to replace them. There's so many different things that are really simple to do.
What resources are available to them? I mean, how can HR take this information to help employees better understand health women's issues in the workplace?
Well, number one, I would invite anyone to go to the peppy.health website because we have a lot of free resources that you can access, from anonymous surveys to downloadable PDFs that you can use for how to help people learn how to talk to their managers. There's also nonprofits like the Menopause Society. It used to be called the North American Menopause Society, but menopause.org is a great place where you can get more education about this. And of course, I'm always doing webinars on menopause so that people can understand the biology.
Absolutely. And I mean, I have to say, Peppy Health is doing some amazing things. Let's talk a little bit about how Peppy Health is assisting companies in navigating the topic of menopause.
So one of the things that we do is we provide personalized support, and that's through our digital app. That way we can meet people where they are. Other ways that we do that is providing a lot of resources through our website or by contacting us. So let me give you an example. We were just at a major international bank and we did an in-person lunch and learn on menopause with an employee resource group of women in tech from all over the world. And it was amazing how just starting the conversation helped other women in the group rely on one another, get tips from one another. The other things that we do is we help companies learn how to appoint a menopause champion, start to populate any kind of communications with education and information. We're even doing some presentations for partners of people who are going through menopause. And then we have guides for employees about what is menopause and what you could do. And I'm working on one right now for managers so that managers can go, how am I going to offer someone a desk fan and because they may be feeling really warm?
Well, this is purely speculative, of course, but let's talk future. I mean, do you believe that women's health issues will still have a stigma attached to them in the workplace, say 10 to 20 years from now?
Oh gosh, I hope not. I hope, Megan, that we're just closing the chapter on the stigma. And I think it's going to be a lot like when people decided they needed family medical leave to care for a parent or a relative or a new baby. And it's just part and parcel of what HR does, right? We provide support to people no matter what they're experiencing. So no, I think that this is just the beginning of the wave of us being able to talk openly and honestly about some of the things that impact us both at home and at work.
Barb Dean, you rock. Thanks for stopping by today.
Oh, Megan, this has been so helpful. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about women's health concerns.
Thanks for listening to the Work Trends Podcast, your favorite source for all that's new and exciting in the world of work. If you love what we do here, do me a favor, make sure to share it. And don't forget, tune in for our next episode. I'll catch up with you next time, friends. Thanks to listening to Work Trends from Talent Culture. Join us every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern for a live Twitter chat with our podcast guest. To learn more about guests featured on today's show, visit the show notes for this episode at talentculture.com and help us spread the word. Subscribe to Work Trends wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave us a rating, review in iTunes. Share Work Trends with your coworkers, your friends. Look forward to it. See you next time.